drop top pointed at his face. You know he thinks he's loving Zoom. And there's a woman in the kitchen thinking about taking 5. And he looks at her and says, hey darling, I can remember when you could see it live. Oh, but ain't that America? We're quarantined, ain't that America? But we still convene, baby, ain't that America? We're watching our screens, yeah. Talk about housing for you and me. Oh, for you and me. Ladies and gentlemen all around the world, welcome to a very special performance of the Theater Public Policy, coming to you live from a completely empty and totally disinfected Bryant Lake Bowl Theater. Please welcome your host for the evening, Tane Danger.
Hey everybody, welcome to a very special edition of the Theater Public Policy. My name is Tane Danger. Do you like my quarantine stash that I'm growing myself because I can grow facial hair? Hey, I'm so excited that you all are here joining us, at least virtually. So, Theater Public Policy, for folks who have never seen it before, we normally here at the Bryant Lake Bowl have a very smart guest that we welcome on stage, and I chat with them about big issues and ideas. And then we have this team of really terrific improvisers who takes everything that we have talked about and bring it to life through entirely unscripted improv comedy. Now, I'm going to introduce our cast in just a second, but I have to address something at the top. You're probably wondering, like, Tane, how is it that you are at the Bryant Lake Bowl? We have a shelter-in-place order right now. Why are you there? And this is totally true that I sent a inquiry, a request into the state of Minnesota asking if it would be all right for me to come here, again, all by myself, to the Bryant Lake Bowl to do our live broadcast from here. Not just because I have an issue with authority, but because we wanted to call attention and highlight this amazing theater and restaurant that has been our home for many years and is closed right now and is struggling. And to be able to bring a little bit of the Bryant Lake Bowl home to you all right now so that hopefully you will go to the Bryant Lake Bowl website and donate or buy some of the amazing merchandise that they have for sale, all of which is helping them stay around and make sure they're here when this whole thing is over. To my great surprise, the state of Minnesota actually wrote me back and sent me this real-life email that says, yes, you can go to the Bryant Lake Bowl and do your shows from there as long as you're all alone and nobody gets close to you. So here we are. I'm so excited, and I'm so excited for tonight's show. First thing I should do is introduce the cast of the Theater of Public Policy. I'm going to hit gallery view so that you can meet our amazing performers for this evening. Tonight's cast is
Aaron Roberts,
Chris Rodriguez,
Doc Washington,
Jim Robinson,
Dennis Curley.
And, oh, you heard Dennis here at the top. That's fantastic. So we have a really great show for you all this evening. I'm very excited. I have to do another quick thank you and shout out to one of our sponsors for this evening, Finnegan's Beer, which I am drinking right now, or I'm going to be drinking right now, Finnegan's Beer. So, wonderful thing. Finnegan's has been our sponsor for a long time. They are still around and making amazing beer that you can still get both in stores, and they have curbside pickup outside their Minneapolis brewery. Here's a really fun thing. If you go to Finnegan's and you tell them T2P2, the Theater of Public Policy, sent you, you get 10% off your curbside pickup order of growlers or cans or whatever you want to get. So please go support Finnegan's, get some delicious beer. Best of all, my favorite thing about drinking Finnegan's right now is that you're getting beer, you're helping a small local brewery, and 100% of Finnegan's profits go to feeding the hungry. And so it is a triple win all around. Okay, that is a lot of me talking. I have to introduce our amazing guest for this evening, who is not, it's not an exaggeration to say that I have been hoping to have her as our guest for a long time, because in all the years doing Theater of Public Policy shows all over Minnesota, and to be honest, all over the country, one issue that comes up over and over and over again is housing. It is the sort of policy issue that everybody, no matter where they are, has a concern about, is worried about, wants to do something about. And so tonight we have Minnesota's 7th Commissioner of Housing joining us. Before she had that role, she worked in the U.S. Office of Housing and Urban Development. She worked actually with, this is name dropping on her behalf, First Lady Michelle Obama on the mayor's challenge to end veterans' homelessness. Please, can everybody, wherever you are at home, do a big round of applause for Commissioner Jennifer Ho. Hello, Commissioner, yay!
Hey, great to almost meet you.
Yes, this is, I very much appreciate you taking the time to do this show with us. Are you at home right now?
Thanks for taking that off, by the way. It's going to make this a little easier. Yeah, this is my home office. I've been working here for 35 days, ever since the governor told us to practice social distancing before the stay-at-home order even went into place. This is it. Living the dream right here. Living
the dream. I love it. I do want to talk about the current situation and things related to COVID, but we planned this show and we've been wanting to talk about housing for a long time. And there's a term that gets thrown around a lot, that we have a housing crisis in Minnesota or nationally, that, we're in a crisis mode. And I worry sometimes we throw that around without maybe knowing exactly what that means, because I think it probably can mean different things to different people, what our housing crisis is. So when you hear that, what is it that you think of as, oh, we're in a housing crisis right now?
I think the easiest way to think about it is it's just math. Right now in Minnesota, we have more households than we have homes. And that means that there's just not enough to go around. And it's basic supply and demand, right? When you don't have enough of something, the price goes up. And so what happens is that we've got the price of homes going up, so it's harder for people to get into home ownership. And we've got a rental market that's unaffordable, especially to folks who make the lease. And then you had a situation like this where you got a lot of folks out of work. Yeah, it kind of sounds like a recipe for a crisis.
So when you say we don't have enough houses or homes, is that just true across the board that we don't have enough? Or is it that we don't have enough, say, housing for families, or we don't have enough housing for people who maybe are at a certain income level, or we don't have enough housing in some other sector? Or is it literally like just, no, we're short everywhere?
So it's two problems. One problem is we're short. And then the second problem is that we've got a mismatch between the cost of housing and what people afford, and that impacts people at the low end of the income scale the most.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's really that simple. You don't have enough, and then you really don't have enough for folks to make the least.
So I hear that. I can imagine a lot of people, and I've heard this before, say, okay, if we've got, that's our housing crisis, well, let's just build a ton more houses.
Yes.
Is that the answer? You just build a ton more houses?
Yeah, you're a genius. That's amazing.
Well, thanks everybody for watching tonight's show. We fixed the housing affordability crisis. Have a great night. Please tip your husband or wife or whoever is serving you beer.
It didn't occur to me to pour a beer. I should have poured a beer. I got water over here. There's more that happens though, because you want this to be overly complex, right? So that you can simplify it.
We have a reputation. Yeah.
I mean, the cost of land goes up. The cost of construction materials goes up. There's a labor shortage right now. And so all of those things make it harder to just say that you're going to do a ton more. And in order to do a ton more for folks who make the least, that's why you need some government investment. Because we can help cover the difference between what it costs to get something built today and what somebody can afford. And that's our job as government.
So I'm so glad you brought up like our job as government, because this is a housing commissioner. That sounds like a very powerful job. Like, you can decide, what people's homes will look like. Like, I assume if I wanted to, add a porch to my backyard, like I would need to call you and get your sign off. But I'm curious.
Please don't.
Okay. What is actually your, what power do you have? Like, I assume you can't be like, all right, Minnesota, build 3 million more homes over the next 10 years, or can you?
We're the state's housing bank. So we work pretty much the same way a bank does, except we don't have tellers, we don't take deposits, we don't store your money for you. But we move a bunch of federal resources and state resources in order to finance the creation of more housing and the preservation of existing housing. And then we also have some state appropriated dollars that help us do things around homelessness and building new homeowners. So there's a whole bunch of different sources of money, but basically we're like the state's housing bank. But because we're government, our mission is to make sure that the housing that we're investing in, and we're bringing federal dollars in to invest in, is really targeted at the place where the private market wouldn't be building housing on its own. So our job is to make sure that there's housing for low-income seniors, individuals on a fixed income because they have a disability, a homeless veteran, workforce housing for people in communities where there's more jobs than there are homes. But we'll also help put a ramp on a house so that grandma can stay there longer with a loan or a low-cost loan. We help people get into home ownership by providing down payment assistance. So everything from homelessness to home ownership and home rehab and all of the rentals stuff in between, we get involved in all of that. But having enough dollars to do it at scale is the limiting factor.
So when you're talking about being the housing bank or the housing bank in this way, I imagine some people, when they think housing department, they immediately think, oh, they're building like housing projects, housing developments, housing for different groups of people. But it sounds like you're saying you're almost more of a conduit between dollars that come from the feds or the state to private builders, or is it more complicated than that?
No, I mean, like I'm in a home that I own with a mortgage, and my bank didn't build my house.
So you're the bank in that way. I mean, so and I ask that because I was talking to someone who's very deep in this, and they were saying once upon a time, our federal government, at least, was more in the business of actually like building housing than it is now, right? There was a period decades and decades ago, kind of where we had a federal government that was like, we're going to build all kinds of housing, both low-income housing, but actually, to be honest, like middle-income and even some middle-upper-income housing, because we need more housing, and this is a role that the feds could play. There was a sort of political ideological shift against that, and it sort of made it so that now we have more of a system of what you're talking about where, okay, we'll help supply the dollars and some of the infrastructure to help make this happen. I guess the question to you is, would it be better if we went back to a system where it was like, no, we need more housing, so government is going to just start building some housing?
You know, it's got to be a lot of things. I mean, there was a big shift away from kind of built public housing to financing housing with tax credits, corporate tax credits. And that is the largest source of capital funding for building new housing right now, tax credits. But that's, when corporations have a lot of taxes that they have to pay, then they'll buy a credit, and then that puts money into the housing capital market. But if there are periods of time like the Great Recession and the housing crash, 2008, 2009, there weren't a lot of corporations trying to ease their tax burden. So it's got some market sensitivities to finance housing that way. HUD still puts money into the private market for housing. They do that with the housing choice vouchers where you rent from a private landlord. They do that with other project-based dollars that go to a privately owned senior living place or another home like that. So, I mean, they're still involved in it, but it's just that we've lost track of scale, and we never got kind of fully out after the housing crash happened over a decade ago.
Well, and I want to ask you about the probable likely crash that we're in now. But before, I guess the question is can the way that we have it set up now fix that problem? Or do we need a different system in order to actually meet the challenge that we have now? Do you feel like you have the tools to actually address this housing challenge that we have going forward?
Back in January, as we were getting ready to walk into a legislative session, before we really understood the coronavirus and what it was going to do to life here, it seemed perfectly plausible to me, and it still does, that if the state makes a significant commitment to housing for the next 5 or 10 years, we can get on the other side of this. We're not as far behind as some communities on the West Coast or the East Coast are. So it's a catch-upable problem. And COVID just made it more complicated, but it's a solvable problem, but it requires investment over time so that developers know that we're in it to get this done, and they begin to plan the types of projects that they know Minnesota Housing is going to prioritize, because they know that we're thinking about the folks that make the least, that the housing market is the most broken for.
So you brought up the word of the month, COVID-19. And so I am curious, you talked about that was, you had a lot of best laid plans lined up before, as a lot of us did, before this epidemic spread. How does that change your priorities, your job, what you're doing both right now, but then also looking forward to the rest of your term?
I think the first thing to realize is that Minnesota Housing is still completely open for business. It has been amazing to watch my team transition to 95% of people working from their homes, and to do it while they are worried about the pandemic, while they're doing distance learning for their kids or providing childcare. But it is amazing to me that my team is still able to keep the regular business of Minnesota Housing going as well as they have. I've just got an incredible team. I think it's too soon to know what all the impacts are. A couple things that I'm worried about is that when people are out of job, they're going to have a hard time paying rent. Yeah. And right now, we're having a hard time getting a final agreement with the legislature on an investment in family homeless prevention and assistance dollars, even though we all agree that the best solution for renters and landlords, for homeowners and banks, is to have be able to make those payments. We just don't want people to get behind, even though they're not working. So I really need some homelessness prevention and rental assistance dollars from the legislature right now.
Can we, what would that be direct payments to people, or how would that work?
We run a family homeless prevention and assistance program today. You go to one of our partners, you've gotten behind, you demonstrate, what you need, and they can cut a check to your landlord and help you out in a crisis so that you don't end up getting evicted. The House asked for $100 million on that, and we had started a little lower, but we had kind of priced it earlier. But we think that makes a lot of sense, because we don't see an end to this, by May 1st. We probably don't see an end to this by June 1st. We may not be over the hump by July 1st. And folks still need to pay the rent or pay their mortgage. And so getting that money is job one. Second piece is we're trying to figure out what the bonding bill conversation is going to look like with a very different economic forecast. We still believe that a hefty investment in housing in a bonding bill is a wise investment. Housing tends to lead markets out of recessions. And this is a doozy of a recession. And, the problem doesn't go away because of a virus. If nothing else, I think that we're expecting that what's happened to the economy because of the virus is going to make the problem worse. And so there is no reason why we can't accept authority to do bonding from the legislature and keep this moving. We know that there are developers out there that still want to develop, and construction is one of the things that's been deemed essential in the stay-at-home orders. So there is no reason to hit pause. In fact, there's probably a reason to kind of resolve this right away. So we take away the anxiety in the industry about whether or not we're going to do something. Let's keep moving this forward.
So when you say do something, I think that there's a lot of people who hear what you're saying and they're like, okay, yes, the trying to combat potential homelessness of folks who are in immediate crisis right now is priority one. Bonding and building some new things sounds really important. And we potentially are going into a recession where a lot of people are going to be really hard up, and maybe those programs to just catch people who are literally about to fall out the bottom of the net are important. But is there something more that we need to do to try and get the sort of, I don't even want to just say economy, but sort of get the system back working where, again, like people are able to make their rent, make their mortgage, we're able to keep this thing going? Because if we have a system where it keeps going that huge numbers of people can't pay their rent, then huge numbers of landlords go and default on what they owe. That's a systemic cyclical problem. So is there like a step 3 or something bigger that needs to happen?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is really where the federal response is so helpful, because they have the ability to do things at scale that are bigger than what states or local communities can do. They haven't done a big push on housing yet, but they've done some things around homelessness, and they've done some things around community development block grant dollars in the CARES Act. There's a conversation happening out in DC about investing in housing as a part of the stimulus. But some of those conversations are devolving. It's hard to do long-term thinking and pandemic in an election year and all the politics. But I'm still hopeful. I'm hopeful both from the federal government in one of the next rounds and with the state legislature that we'll get what we need, or at least start building our way in the right direction.
So you're the housing commissioner. Let's just assume most of DC is watching this show right now.
I'm sure they are.
Yeah, I think, Congress is off right now, so they've got nothing else to do but watch our policy-based improv show. So what is it that you would want them to do? Like, what tools do you want them to give you that would allow you to address this and lead in a way to be productive right now?
Well, just to make it hard on your improv team, I'll talk more about tax credits.
Yeah, no, it's tax credits and homelessness. Great, good, keep going.
I could throw bonding in there because I think that there are some technical things that they could do to make the tools that they give us today go further faster. And so we're working with, there's 49 other housing commissioners around the country. We've got a trade group out in DC, and we're talking about if you changed for a period of time how some of this technical tax credit bondy stuff happens, that it actually could infuse more money with the tools that we have into what we do. And then there's a National Housing Trust Fund. There's a home partnership. There's other programs that could simply take infusions of money and help us do more faster.
That would be good. Do more faster, which actually brings me to my final question for you for this half. And I should say, first half of the show, I'm chatting with Commissioner Ho, but then we're going to turn it over to our cast. Second half of the show, we open it up for you all watching at home to throw us questions for the commissioner. So if you have those questions and you're watching on Facebook, you can just write them into the chat there. If you're watching somewhere else, you can tweet them at T2P2, and we will bring those to the commissioner. But your communications person sent me something that was just a very, enigmatic. They just said, ask her about go big so everyone can go home. And I said, there was no explanation for what that meant. So what does go big so everyone can go home mean?
It's a phrase I used my first day on the job back in January of last year, that what we want to do is kind of go big in terms of thinking about financing and things, in terms of thinking about solving that problem of not having enough. And there's why should we go big? Because, it turns out we all need a home. And it was pretty catchy. I actually spoke at a national homelessness conference. Man, it feels a lifetime ago. And
what was it, like 3 weeks?
Yeah, February. But just that phrase, and with this stay-at-home order, I mean, it's never been more clear how important our homes are for our health and well-being. And to not have one you can afford, to not have one at all, to be doubled up right now when we're all like looking at each other funny every time we sneeze or touch our faces, it just like the world works better when every family unit has a home that they can afford.
That is a beautiful sentiment to end the first half of this show, the first part of the show on. So again, wherever you are, I hope that you will join me in doing a big round of applause. Commissioner Jennifer Ho, yay! That was fantastic. Now what's going to happen is I'm going to turn it back into gallery mode, or speaker mode eventually, because we're going to see the whole cast of the Theater of Public Policy here. Commissioner Ho and I are going to put ourselves on mute and turn off our cameras right now, and then turn it all over to the cast of the Theater of Public Policy. Now, I cannot stress this enough. Everything they do is entirely made up on the spot. They are all improvising based just on what the commissioner and I talked about. They're also all doing this from the isolation of their own homes, totally separate from each other. So this is like a triple Lindy of improv complexity, and yet they're going to do it brilliantly, hilariously, all about housing and bonding, I guess. So please, wherever you are, a big round of applause for the Theater of Public Policy.
Aaron, I don't usually talk about this on the first date, but I am so excited. And I just wanted you to know that if I want to talk about bonding, and I want to talk about tax credits, and I know I go too fast. People tell me I'm always going too fast, but it's something that means a lot, and I get excited. So
it's okay. Actually, Jim, this is kind of a breakthrough. I've been on so many Tinder dates and recently so many virtual dates. To have you come out and tell me these things, it's like I get a piece of insight into your soul, and the fact that you're so passionate about things like bonding and tax credits, it's like I don't even know how to. I mean,
I don't know. I know. Don't say
I'm like
something.
sweating right now.
I know, but please, Aaron, don't say something you're going to regret, because what I'm thinking, and I should never say this to you right away, but what if tax credits were actually something that were spread out not just to the bigger corporations who might not use them as a tax credit now, but to other businesses, so that those could then go into like the housing bank? And I've said too much. No,
Stop.
I know.
No, how did you read my mind? Like, this is something that I have been wanting for our community and our country for so long. How have I just found you now?
I don't know. I'd invite you back to my place, but I'm kind of between places. I thought maybe I could come over to your house.
Well, there's a stay-at-home, stay-in-place order right now, but I would take a rain check, and perhaps when all of this craziness is over, you and I can have a virtual walk. And
No, Aaron, we are star-crossed lovers. Accept it.
Government. It is I, big business, and I can build houses for you, but I have to know, I have to understand that you're committed to bringing me dollars.
Oh, hey, big government here. Look, okay, we've got like all the money, so yeah, we're really committed to giving it to you all. I don't know why I already said this like 3 times.
Yeah, I just need you to make me feel reassured, because you offer these tax credits and things now, but will they always be there? Will you always be fluffing my pockets up?
Whoa, I feel like there's a real lack of trust here. I'm not really sure what else I can do for you. Perhaps, maybe a little gift to, make you feel safe and secure. I don't know.
Oh, yes. Oh, that's very nice. Well, I think I can start building you some houses right away. But, a lot of people don't want me to build houses in their neighborhoods that are low income, or for the groups that you want me to build houses for. What am I supposed to do? I mean, I don't want people to be mad at me just because I...
Well, yeah, okay.
hi, just little single person here. I wanted to come to you guys and just tell you that I'm having trouble paying my rent, and I know that you are the big guys with all the money, and I thought maybe you could help me.
How's
With
it going?
the rent, I mean, it's just, it's hard because I'm not working right now. So, and you guys have all the money and all the power, and it's just little old me and my cat.
I think there's not a problem. We can build some housing for you. What do you think of condos?
How much will that be?
Hey, Chris.
Oh, hey, Jim.
Hi, yeah, listen, I know that you work for Minnesota Housing, and I know that it's not just about building housing, but it's also, retrofitting housing to make it more accessible to people. I've made a huge mistake. I cut down a load-bearing wall to have an open concept kitchen so that maybe I could both, like watch my family and cook at the same time, be more part of it. I can't stand my family anymore, and I need money for someone to build another wall.
HGTV, it does it again. These open floor housing plans will be the death of housing, I tell you. We can't do it, Jim.
You got to help me. I took my sinks and I made them into those great big punch bowls. Have you tried to shave with those things? I hit my elbow every day. Please, I know this might sound trivial, but I'm going nuts.
Martha Stewart does it again. Why would you even listen to her, Jim? Please just tell me the one thing you didn't do was convert all of your piping into your home into floral vases around the yard.
It sounded like a good idea way back when.
Hi, Aaron, how are you?
Oh, I'm fine, a little tired, but I'm okay. How about you?
I don't know if you heard the bad news, but it seems like they passed some bills and they're gonna build some new houses, which means some of us trees are just gonna have to go.
Not again.
Yeah, you remember Frank got cut down to build a new house just last week, and now they're gonna build more and more. So
Frank and I were in the middle of a conversation when they cut him down. I'll never know the end of that story now.
Oh gosh, that's terrible.
Well, it was about his mother being made into paper, so it was a little confusing anyway. But
I gotta tell you, life as a tree is really hard. I mean, people cutting us down for lumber. We got emerald ash borer, and then like 6 months out of every year in Minnesota, we're basically naked
and dead. Yeah. I mean, we're not dead, but it feels like it sometimes, doesn't it?
It does.
It's just and you know what? Housing schmousing, there's still an environmental crisis, and we're a part of that.
Right? Like, we don't help with that. And speaking of housing, think of all the little critters that use me for their housing.
I got a new 12-family squirrel population right up there.
Oh, and where are they?
Whoa! Hi guys, it's me, Frank, but now I'm a tree ghost.
Well, are you gonna finish your story? I've been on bated breath for the last 2 weeks.
It's the whole reason I came back. You see, the thing is, she got turned to paper. Well, I hope that was helpful to you guys. Tree ghost away!
That was really an anti...
I'm a yurt.
Hey, Aaron, listen, I know we've been running this race for like 6 weeks, but I don't think we're too far behind. I think that if we really give it the old college try, we can catch up to those other amazing racers.
That's great.
Oh, God.
So what's on the list that we haven't done yet? Where are we going? We're going to Minnesota, right?
Yeah, I think we're supposed to collect like a snowbank or something. I don't really quite understand how this entire thing works. You're the reality TV expert. Please tell me that you understand what this whole thing is about.
Look, just because I was the 12th person voted off Survivor the first season doesn't mean I'm an expert, okay? I thought you were in this with me because you and I had like a connection.
Oh, wait. This is about something more than the race, isn't it?
Well,
this is about us.
I don't know, Chris, you're giving me some Mixed signals. Maybe I misread it, but I thought that, we bonded over, the reality TV. But then when you asked me to join you on this journey, I thought, well, now we're really bonded.
On your left, quit blocking the roads, you idiots.
Oh, gee.
Okay.
Great. Oh,
Hey,
yes. Okay.
hey, Duck.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I know that I shouldn't get this personal so quickly, but I realized that I was starting to share too much on my dates, and Aaron wouldn't talk to me anymore. So instead of talking about housing, I thought we would talk about water purification and sewage. I'm really passionate about it.
You're passionate about water purification and sewage?
I am. I mean, just think about what we could do, and they actually combine. If you think about it, if we could learn to really purify our water, we could then maybe have a better piping system, and then people wouldn't have to worry about their walls falling down and everyone watching them in the kitchen while they're just trying to have a few moments to themselves.
Jim, I have to tell you, I think that sounds wonderful. I've been looking for somebody who feels the same way about water purification and sewage that I do. My whole life, I've been waiting for someone to come along and talk about the fact that our water just isn't clean. It just doesn't taste right when it comes out of the tap.
Can I come over?
No, Jim, you can't come over. There's a stay-at-home order right now.
Everybody, yay! Make a big round of applause for the Theater of Public Policy. That was fantastic. Oh my gosh, fabulous. Thank you all so much. Hey, while folks are still watching, before I start talking too much again, I have to do this ask, and it's really important, which is I'm asking if you're enjoying the show, you enjoy anything that we do. If you just enjoy the fact that we exist as a theater of public policy, would you support us? Would you make a donation to the Theater of Public Policy? So this show that we're putting live online right now is totally free. Normally, we would hopefully be filling whole sections of this theater in order to be able to pay our performers and keep this theater company going, and our ticket sales would pay for that. We can't do that right now, so our biggest source of income, our virtually only source of income these days right now, is you making a donation to support us. And so if you are enjoying this, or you want to see this still exist in 2 months, 3 months, 6 months from now, please, there's a link at the bottom where you can go and make a gift either on GiveMN, or even better would become a supporter on an ongoing basis through our Patreon. So please, if you can, please consider doing that. It really does allow us to make gifts possible. I'm going to just do this really quickly because this will help, is that Jim Robinson is right now using a cat. Oh no, now he put it away. So if you enjoy Jim Robinson and this cat, make a gift. All right, so with that, I am going to say thank you so much. And now I want to bring back our fabulous guest for this evening. Please, a big round of applause one more time wherever you are. Commissioner Jennifer Ho, yay! And she's going to turn back on everything, and then we're going to be here.
I'm good.
Okay, good. Hi. All right, so this is the part of the show where we open up for questions from our audience.
How could there be any questions after that elucidation of the whole housing market?
We got it pretty much, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Good.
Couldn't have said it better.
Okay, so we have had questions. So, okay, here's question. The first question we got. Please ask Commissioner Ho what Minnesota Housing can do to make properties it funds more open to households with barriers such as poor credit, rental, or criminal history. Currently, many tax credit properties screen out vulnerable residents. So are there things that your office, that the state of Minnesota can do to make housing that you help support more available to people that have some of those barriers, whether it's a criminal record or bankruptcy or poor credit, anything like that?
Yeah, no, and I appreciate that question. That's a conversation that I've been having my team since the first day that I started working there. Is it seems to me that if you are using federal assistance or state assistance to help create housing, you should help us meet our goals about housing folks that other people might screen out. And so we're looking at the way that our tools are set up, the way that, you know, the housing resources are scarce resources, so it's people have to kind of compete to get to the top of the list for our dollars and our resources, and we get to kind of set out our priorities in terms of what you need to do. And so we're looking at, you'll love this, qualified allocation plan. That's the document.
Qualified allocation plan. Everybody, that's your drink word for the evening. So please take a drink wherever you are, of whatever you're drinking.
But that's the basically the set of priorities that we set out that then tell projects, if you look like this, you'll score well, and if you don't look like this, you won't. And using those tools, but also just conversations with the folks that do this work. Why do they screen out who they screen out? Like, what's the evidence of that? You know, can we really, because we know that we do targeted housing for people who have, you know, long histories, and that housing can be very, very successful when people have the right supports. So it's just about really saying, if you want access to our money, we're going to ask you to kind of play by a different set of rules than maybe you were asked to play by in the past.
Speaking of which, there's a sort of follow-up question that came in just now. Somebody asks, what can you share about innovative practices coming out of local government? Are there local government things that are happening right now that you look to as like, yeah, that's very cool, we should scale that up?
Yeah, I mean, Bloomington is an interesting place where they just decided that they were going to say, if you're going to build housing here, you just need to make more of it affordable. And it hasn't like made construction grind to a halt. You know, they've done some interesting things in Minneapolis where they've said you no longer can have a neighborhood that only allows single family homes. You know, like a duplex or a triplex isn't going to, you know, ruin the neighborhood. And, you know, that's something that will take effect over time. But I think those are exactly the types of conversations that need to be had. I mean, the way that housing gets built on any street, you know, you've got the local government that is influencing that with zoning and code issues, and then you've got kind of this layering on of state stuff, and then a layering on of federal stuff. And I just think the need to do more, we just got to challenge, you know, a lot of the history behind why we do things the way that we do things. And a lot of that history, frankly, was discriminatory and intentionally discriminatory, put these policies in place that were meant to keep people out. And, you know, I think what communities are understanding all across the state is that we need more housing, and we need to kind of rethink the way that we've done this stuff so that we get more people in.
Can you say, this is a piece that I hear a lot when these housing debates come up. I live in Minneapolis. When the Minneapolis 2040 plan was being debated, well, before we lived through our current times, I was like, this is the most traumatic thing that I will live through, because it was such a heated debate, and there was just, you know, it was pretty aggressive. So you hear that a lot, though. People say, like, it's not, I don't know if you were saying it sort of as hyperbole, but I think I literally did hear people say, if they allow duplexes and triplexes in this area, it will destroy this neighborhood and it will wreck this. How do you react when you hear things like that on any side, I guess, of this? How do you try and balance what I would guess is people's real fear sometimes about change and how things might go with what needs to happen?
Yeah, but I think that we also don't tend to explicitly acknowledge our racism. And so we use these other phrases and kind of code speak around something. And it's like, what are people afraid of? They're afraid that somebody who is poorer than them might move in on their block. Is that what they're afraid of? You know? And I think that really, you know, we don't have a good conversation that's going on around what is it that drives a lot of that thinking. And I think what drives a lot of that thinking is kind of a desire to have, segregation instead of integration. We want rich people to live over here, and we want poor people to live over here. And because more poor people are people of color, it ends up being more white people living over here and more people of color living over there. And that's not creating a healthy communities for anybody.
That is a very important, powerful note. I appreciate that. And I'm very tempted to dig more into that, and hopefully we will, but I'm going to ask some other questions that have come in. And maybe this is related, maybe it isn't. So this question is, since 93% of evictions are for non-payment of rent, how can the state help, as that is the overriding reason for evictions? So there's obviously trauma with this and whatnot. Is there any way that the state, I guess, can help in terms of evictions being a result primarily of non-rent or not paying rent?
Yeah, you do get a wonky crowd. Well, yeah, right. And Minnesota has some of the toughest eviction laws, on record. We don't give people a lot of opportunity to fix things. And the second a landlord files an eviction against you, it goes on your record and it kind of stays there forever. Even if you make things right or you go to the court and the court finds in your favor, you still have to do a ton of stuff to get it taken off your record. So, there's some things that if this was a more normal policy legislative session, we would be having conversations about what types of changes can we make in our state eviction law that would just give renters a little bit more of a fair chance in all of this. And, and then I think, especially now, making sure that we do have good tools like family homeless prevention assistance out there. But one thing I will say is that, there are landlords all over the state that aren't running to evict you if you're 3 days behind or 5 days behind, or in a situation like this, if you're 20 days behind on your rent. There's landlords all over the place that would rather just keep a good tenant there than to have to flip the unit, advertise again, bring somebody else on. And, it's really that spirit, I think, that we're appealing to right now. And if we can work with the legislature and we get some assistance from the federal government to, get some money in people's pockets so that they can stay caught up, that's going to help us when this is over, so that we don't kind of have a backlog of evictions that are going to happen because people got behind. So let's not let people get behind. And when people get behind, let's talk together and not, try to move to quickly evict people, especially now.
One piece I would love to ask you to just talk about for a moment is you mentioned Bloomington being doing some very cool things, and Bloomington, part of the metro, mentioned Minneapolis as well. One of the things that struck me while we've been doing a lot of theater public policy shows is that this is a crisis and a conversation that happens all over the state. That housing shortages are a real thing in, greater Minnesota, rural communities, as much or even potentially in some cases more than it is in the Twin Cities or the metro region. The suburbs have their own issues. And so can you maybe, because I think that sometimes we maybe just like quarantine it off, to use the buzzword of the day, and to say, oh, well, this is like an urban problem, right? Like this is a city's problem. But this is something that shows up everywhere. And so can you maybe just help paint that picture for people who haven't really thought about what does a housing crisis look like in greater Minnesota or the suburbs?
Sure. I mean, one of the last trips that I got to make before we stopped traveling around was up to Thief River Falls and Roseau, and sat with the mayors of those cities and their housing directors and leadership from DigiKey and Polaris. And, those are places where the greatest limiting factor to the businesses being able to expand the way that they wanted to expand was having a supply of housing that workers there would be able to afford. And so, traveled around the region with Senator Johnson from up there. Yeah, I think, in my conversations with people around the state, my conversations with the legislature, there is nobody that has said, we don't want more of what you do in our district. And it truly is, especially for greater Minnesota towns that have thriving industries, getting housing right and getting housing that is priced in relationship to what people make is really, really, really key. And, I mean, whether that's down in Rochester, making sure that there's housing not just for the doctors, but for the personal care attendants and the school teachers, that's affordable there. That's a conversation. I've been all over the state, and there's not a single place where people have said, nope, don't need any of what you do.
So I've got one last question here from an audience member, and I like it because it's a very sort of positive spin on the situation that we are all in right now, which is they ask, what can we do through COVID recovery to integrate housing and other sectors and leaders as we find sustainable solutions to fix the housing system? So is there an opportunity in this crisis period that we're in to potentially remake some things that were not working previously and actually come out stronger, to be able to come out in a place where we're doing certain things better because we have to remake certain things right now anyway?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's right. And, I think, one of the catch lines is don't squander a crisis and, really try to figure out where that opportunity is. I mean, for me, one area where it's really evident is in people sleeping outside. We are going to see people sleeping outside because we've stopped moving people around all day and making them sleep someplace differently all the day. We've known for a long time those numbers are going up. If we end up finding strategies to engage people and bring them inside to survive this virus, well, then we should be thinking about how we then make sure that they have their own home at the end of that we don't just return 1,600 people to living outside and go back to the process of just moving them around. So, I mean, that's kind of one extreme of it. I think the other is because housing tends to lead the way out of a recession. If we really can have a rational, fact-based policy discussion, both in Washington, D.C. and here at the Capitol, then I think that we should be seeing housing bonding dollars and some federal relief on housing before this is all over. And it's taking a while, I think, for it to soak in that this pandemic too is a greater Minnesota thing and a statewide thing and a nationwide thing and a worldwide thing. And this isn't going to be like we're all back to the way it was, in a couple of weeks. It's taking a while for it to soak in. We don't have exponential brains. We don't understand pandemics because they work differently than everything else in our life. And so as it soaks in, I think the conversation will turn towards the important role that housing is going to have to play to get us out the other side of this.
And so I said that was the last question, but I'll ask one more because I always like asking guests this, which is, okay, folks watching at home right now, what can they do to maybe help make that happen? Is there a role for, regular citizens to play in trying to shape that future that you're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, if you have never called your state legislators, now's a great time to find out who they are and track them down and talk to them about what matters. Because this legislative session is so different because folks aren't at the Capitol all the time, I think there's an opportunity to have, just have conversations that are different from what happens in traditional hearings or when lobbyists represent people or lobby day on the Hill and things like that. So, talk to your legislators and your Congress people about what's important to you and why it's important to you and what's important to our, our community, what's important for getting back on our feet. The fact that so many people are out of work or working reduced hours, the need for rental assistance to help people out right now seems pretty straightforward. Help me, ask the legislature, help me get more rental assistance so I can help people pay their rent. Especially folks that have really kind of lost their places. It's so sad to see that theater empty like that. And I'm thinking about all the food service and hospitality workers that were a part of my regular life and, how much folks are hurting right now. So the rental assistance to get through this is a no-brainer, but to really make sure that we have a long-term commitment to housing. And, you know, I think when President Obama did his endorsement of Joe Biden, the video last week, he talked about, we're really learning who's essential. It's the folks that stock the grocery shelves. It's the doctors and nurses, and it's the people that get them to work. It's the folks that still came by and picked up my garbage. And I just think we have to have a conversation about how we have historically undervalued people who are proving to be so absolutely essential to our economy, and making sure that whether it's with wages or with help with housing, that we make sure that we continue to express that gratitude long after we've survived this pandemic.
I cannot think of a better note to end this conversation on. I want to say thank you so much to Commissioner Jennifer Ho. That was very moving and powerful. And yes, I will say, as somebody who's also very sad to be in an empty Bryant Lake Bowl, please support the service people that make things like this theater run every day, and remember them after we are able to all go back to normal, hopefully.
And I'll also give a shout out to Jackie Berglund and the good folks at Finnegan's.
Yes,
So,
a big shout out to Jackie and Finnegan's. Oh, I love it. Okay, good. All right, so now what do we have to do? We have to take all of that brilliant wisdom that the commissioner gave us and turn it back over one more time to the cast of the Theater of Public Policy. Just like before, everything they do is entirely made up on the spot. So please, wherever you are, either make a big round of applause for the Theater of Public Policy or make a donation to the Theater of Public Policy. You can do both probably at the same time. For now, please, a big round of applause for the Theater of Public Policy.
Chris.
Aaron, hey, how you doing?
Oh, hey, I wanted to ask you, I'm having trouble calling my representative, or can you help me? It's like I can't get through. It's like there's just more, like all this red tape and voicemails, and like they're sending me into another. I just want to talk to them. Are you having any issues or?
No, I was able to call and talk to them just fine. Tell me, are you calling them on a telephone, or are you doing that thing again where you try to call them on a pair of shoes?
Oh.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are gathered here today to talk about a little thing called the housing crisis. Now, while I was refreshing myself in the ice-cool waters of Lake Minnetonka, I thought to myself, Prince, there aren't a lot of people around here who look like you. No, there sure aren't. And what are we going to do about this? Well, I turn my thoughts over to you. Jim. Jim, what are we going to do to solve this housing crisis so that when Prince goes home, Prince sees other people of color?
Well, Prince, I appreciate this, and I'm glad that you've asked me to help write a lyric to express what I think we need to do. And what I think we need to do is we need to have more qualified allocation plans that include people like Prince. If you think about that, it would turn me around.
I like the sound of qualified allocation plans.
Yeah.
Roll
Take me with you.
Sweet qualifying allocation plans. If I was playing a drinking game right now where qualified allocation plans was the time where you were supposed to drink, people would be getting a little upset with them. I'm saying qualified allocation plans right now.
Oh my God, I'm so trapped.
That's just how Prince likes you, baby.
Wow. Thank you, Prince. Thank you so much. I mean, hey, Chris.
What's going on there, Jim?
Yeah, I'm just feeling kind of low. I'm a duplex with Aaron here, and
Yeah.
we were looking for someone to join us, make a triplex, and nobody in the neighborhood wants to, so we're coming to you. Do you want to be part of the triplex? I'm willing to do the garden level, the basement part, and Aaron said she'd take upstairs, but we need someone to be the middle.
Oh, I really do love that, but I don't know if you guys got the memo. I'm actually cartoonishly evil, and all of this sounds awful to me in every possible regard.
Can I sweeten the pie a bit?
Sure, you're gonna really have to, again, cartoonishly evil.
I get that. I get that. The person who lives on the first floor would get the entire garage.
Ooh, it's pretty good. Can you sweeten the pot one more time with maybe like theatrical levels of gold and diamonds?
Well, I fancy myself a little bit of a sketch artist. I'm happy to draw all of that for you, and I don't know. We can make it sort of a projected thing.
Well, there's one thing that cartoonishly evil people love. It's beautiful sketches of gold and diamonds. I'm on board.
I want to tell you that if you're on the first floor, then you would have the majority of the mailbox. The rest of us, I mean, we could just like put in some cardboard and put a little part for Aaron and a little bit part for me, so you could get a lot.
Sure,
Well, that's
sure.
perfect for the sheer number of ransom notes from the puppies that I kidnapped. Whoa, thank you.
The thing is, you'd be in charge of getting the gas bill, because you have a gas heater and I just have a burner downstairs, and Aaron doesn't have anything.
I don't have anything. But hardy, thick-skinned, I guess.
Ooh. Well, you lost me.
Oh, shoot.
It's just not fair. Every time I apply for a mortgage, the second they see Tweedledum on my resume, I get rejected.
Mr. Tweedledum, is it?
Yes.
Well, I'm sorry, sir, but the name doesn't supply a lot of confidence in
But what is in
you.
A name is not my character. A name is just the name I was designated at birth.
Well,
excuse me, I was also applying for something. Mr. Super Duper Moneybags over here.
Now, there's something about that rings real nice to me. I think.
Come on, Mr. Moneybags.
I'll just take all of those resources. Good luck.
But me, sure, I had some bad times in my past. Maybe a girl named Alice thought I was a little weird, but I've gotten past that, and I just want to start moving my life forward.
Well, here's the thing. Here's what I have to say to you, Mr. Tweedledum, is it?
Yeah.
We have this wonderful resource in our Minnesota Housing Commissioner, Ms. Jennifer Ho. And I think that perhaps, unlike me, who is not going to be helpful, if you contacted her and her phenomenal team at the Minnesota Housing Commission, you might have better luck. See ya.
You think that the Housing Commission could help me?
Yes, because I'm not going to.
Hey, Jim. Listen, I know that you're in charge of this, and I was kind of wondering if you could help me. I have this old thing on my record that I've been trying to get rid of, and apparently I have to go through an insane amount of loops to get that done. Could you illuminate me a little bit on that?
Yeah, you're talking about an eviction notice that you actually had reversed because you not only paid the rent, but you were found to be not guilty. But it's still on your record, right?
Right, exactly. But it seems that there's a bunch of, again, almost nonsensical things that I have to go through. It says here I have to tame a lion. Is that true?
Tame a lion? Yeah, you do. But one thing that you might want to think about is that if you went up to the Como Zoo, the animals there seem just a little bit, and I'm not making fun of this, they seem sadder. So, that might be an easier one to tame. It's just a start,
Cool. Okay. All right. Fair. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Step 2 is then to launch myself into space.
I get that. I get that.
Just out of curiosity, why? Maybe,
Well,
I don't know.
Because they want to make sure that if you're willing to go into space, that you're going to actually come back and pay the next month's rent. It's not really that unreasonable if you think about it. And besides, they're not talking about you going way into the atmosphere. You're just going to be in the stratosphere. You can just come right back down.
Great. The last one is cure all things wrong with the world.
Yeah.
Jim.
Yeah. Well, you should have paid your rent. Sorry.
I did.
Aaron.
Yeah. Yes, Doc.
I'm so sorry, but I'm afraid that this neighborhood just can't have a duplex in it. I mean, it'll change our whole way of life here.
Look, I understand, and I'm not trying to make waves here, friend, but I have 35 siblings. I cannot, like, we can't just live in one house. It's like, yes, okay, we're one family, but we cannot live in a one family house.
And I understand that, and I sympathize with that, but we have this aesthetic in this neighborhood that we feel like we need to retain. And if one house looks different in this neighborhood, it'll just throw off that aesthetic, and I don't know, it'll make us feel like we're not a high-end established.
Here's the thing, though, and I hear what you're saying, but here's the thing. Wouldn't it be also weird if we, like, all 35 of us and our kids and spouses just like bought all the houses in a row, and then we kind of look like, I don't know, like zombie Stepfordy? Like, wouldn't that also be creepy? Instead, if we had a duplex, we're all confined to one space. I mean, like, what's worse aesthetically, right?
Well, from my perspective, we like living in our Stepford Wives neighborhood.
Right.
I mean, everyone here looks the same. All our houses look the same. We all cook the same bland foods. And we don't know what you're going to bring with your duplex.
We will bring hot dish.
Yay, everybody! Give it a big round of applause for the Theater of Public Policy. That was fantastic. Hey, thank you all so much for watching at home. I hope that you all had a wonderful time being part of this conversation. I want to say a big thank you to our fabulous guest, Commissioner Jennifer Ho, who I'm gonna spotlight you. Hey, everybody, there she is. Okay, big round of applause, Commissioner Jennifer Ho. Thank you so much for being here. I am delighted to, so thank you all so much for watching at home. My name is Tane Danger. We have been here all evening. I'm at the Bryant Lake Bowl. I am so excited to get to share this space with you all, and I hope that you all will support the Bryant Lake Bowl by purchasing something like one of their fabulous hoodies or t-shirts or hats or all the things that they have online in order to help make this place stick around long after this whole crisis is over. I want to say a big thank you to our other sponsor, Finnegan's, who have been drinking Finnegan's beer all night, and please go and support them by buying beer for yourself. That shouldn't be that hard of a sell. And I keep doing this last, even though it's important because it's how I live, is please support the Theater of Public Policy so that we can keep doing shows like this online. Again, if you think about normally a show would cost $12-15 to come see, you chipping in $12 to $15 or even more if you can afford it right now helps make sure that we can keep doing shows like this and supporting our fabulous cast. Whew, that is a lot of me talking. I am going to say one more time, we're the Theater of Public Policy, and tonight's cast has been
Aaron Roberts,
Chris Rodriguez,
Doc Washington,
Jim Robinson,
Dennis Curley, hello.
And all the way at the bottom of some people's screens right now is Commissioner Jennifer Ho, who has been our guest for this evening. That's our show for tonight. Thank you all so much for watching. Please make a donation if you can. Support the Bryant Lake Bowl, support Finnegan, support our media sponsor, MinPost, and we will see you next week. All right, good night, everybody.
There's an actor doing improv alone in his bedroom. He's got a laptop pointed at his face. You know he thinks he's loving Zoom. And there's a woman in a kitchen thinking about making five. He looks at her and says, "Hey, darling, I can remember when you couldn't see it alive. Oh, but ain't that America? We're quarantined. Ain't that America? But we still convene, baby. Ain't that America? We're watching our screens, yeah. Talk about housing for you and me. Oh, for you and me. Yeah, we're gonna see you all all next week. Goodbye from the Theater of Public Policy.